Good morning. Now, when Mr. Norbert announced me, he called me Dean Stephanie Powell. Today, I want to tell you a story about my girls. Now, all my girls are getting a little nervous. Don't worry, it's not about none of you. This happened a long time ago before they were here. Do you know that I have lots of girls in my dormitory? Usually, I have somewhere between 75 and 95 girls in my dorm a year. That's a lot of girls, isn't it? One of the things that my girls do not like to do, even the ones that are in this room right now, is to take out their trash. They hate it. I bet some of the adults in here don't like to take out their trash either. But my girls really don't like it. You know why? Because they have to not only come out of this big building, they have to walk all the way back to a dumpster that isn't anywhere near anywhere they have to go. And it's just a long way out of the way, and it's a lot of work, and it's a long walk to have to take their trash all the way out there. And sometimes it's really cold. Sometimes it's a nice day, but even on the nice days, they don't want to take their trash out. Some of us may understand that, right? Well, taking out their trash tends to be something that we fight with a little bit. As a dean, I have gotten really good at being a detective because I know you can't believe this, but sometimes the girls take their trash and they hide it in the dorm in places they think I won't know. Can you believe that? Now, Dean Rita is really a lot better at this than I am, but she is really good at digging through trash and figuring out whose it is. We do that sometimes. Sometimes we have to watch cameras. Sometimes friends tell on friends, but quite often we figure out who it was that hid their trash. Sometimes they even take it out on campus and hide it because they don't want to go back to the dumpster. Can you believe that? They do. They don't like to take that trash out. It's just too hard. Well, I had this one girl, and she hated to take out the trash. In fact, it was one of the hardest things she ever had to do. And there was a lot of times she and I had to talk about taking out the trash because she would keep it in her room, and it would get bigger and bigger and smellier and smellier. And she would fail room check, and she would lose privileges because she failed room check, but she didn't care. She wasn't going to take her trash out. And she liked to do one thing that was really difficult for us. She liked to take her trash and she liked to stick it out in the hallway. Well, what happens when you stick your trash out in the hallway? How many people does it affect then? The whole hall. And that trash had been sitting there for a while and it could get really smelly. And then girls had to walk around it and it just wasn't very nice because now everybody had to deal with her trash because she wouldn't take it out. And so she and I would go back and forth all the time about the trash, and I kept trying to come up with different and unique ways to try to get her to take out her trash, but she and I just kept battling and she wouldn't do it. Well, one day she'd let her trash get really bad, and she had a big bag of trash. I bet I could almost fit all of you in that bag of trash. It was so big. And we had been fighting about it, and some of the deans had been fighting with her, and it had gotten so smelly she didn't want it in her room, and she kept sticking it out in the hall. I would walk on the hall and I'd be, whoa, what is that smell? Because the whole hall would smell bad, and the girls on the hall would get really angry at her. And you know what else happens sometimes when you don't take out your trash? Bugs start coming up. This is why I really care about these things, yeah. And so it was getting pretty bad. Well, the deans, we had been fighting with her about it, and we'd stuck it back in her room, and she'd pulled it back out, and she was getting frustrated at us for caring. And finally, one day, I got smart, and I said, I don't know why I've done this before, but I'm standing right here, and I'm going to watch you walk all the way out and take your trash out. Now, you're going to do it. She was so mad at me, but she did. She picked up her big bag of trash, and she walked it out to the dumpster. And finally, we'd taken care of the trash. Well, I was back in my office that evening, about 30 minutes after I'd made sure she took out her trash, when all of a sudden, something happened. A fire alarm? Why would a fire alarm go off? Does anybody know? That was quiet, but in the dorm, it is really loud. Everybody jumps and screams, and lights start flashing, and it's kind of scary. And what has to happen when a fire alarm goes off in a dorm? Does anybody know? I know somebody who knows. What happens, Jackson? Everybody goes outside. Does even the dean's family have to go sit outside? And the dean's dog and everybody around has to go sit outside for at least sometimes in a girl's dorm. It's not like when the fire alarm goes off at your house. In a dorm, the fire engines have to come, and the police have to come, and all the emergency people have to come. And sometimes it's quick, but sometimes it can take an hour for the girls to be able to come back in the dorm. And that night, it took a while. And so the whole dorm was out, and it was during study hall, and there was lots of tests that night, and nobody got to study because they were all stuck outside of the dorm because of the fire drill. And when we came back in, sure enough, guess what room it was that the fire alarm had gone off in? One of my girls said, the trash girls. Yes, that was the room where the fire alarm had been triggered. You know why? Because that smelly trash had gotten so smelly that even when she opened the door and the window, she couldn't get rid of it. So she had sprayed Febreze and spray and everything she had all over, and it had triggered the fire alarm. So now not only did it affect her whole hall because her whole hall was smelly, but now the whole dorm, and back then we had about 95 girls in the dorm, the whole dorm didn't get to study that night because of that. So that night, because we'd been fighting for a long time, you know what I had her do? She got to take out the entire dorm's trash because she had to help return some of the time that she'd taken from everybody. Now, sometimes we don't realize how our actions affect each other. Maybe it's something small, like a little trash that we thought didn't really affect anybody else. Maybe sometimes we've said something that isn't really nice to somebody else, and then that makes them upset, and then they go say something mean to somebody else, and then that person is upset, and they go say something mean to somebody else. We don't always realize how some of the things that we do, maybe sometimes we're being lazy. Maybe sometimes we're just thinking about ourselves and not how the little things that we do affect others. There's a Bible verse, and it's in Mark 12:31, and it says, "There is a commandment more important than any other commandment." There's 10 commandments. This one's more important than any of the others, and it says, "You should love others as you love yourself." We often think about ourselves and what affects us, and maybe we don't want to take our trash out today. Maybe we don't want to deal with it, but God asks us, and it's more important than any of the other things. Love others as you love yourself. Think about others and how your actions affect somebody else. You can go back to your seats.